So I made this model. These things are really small. Um, that's 28 millimeters by 16 millimeters by 48 millimeters. So this whole, all these little parts, they're, probably about that big, life size. And it used to only cost a few dollars to make under the previous Shapeways pricing structure, but Shapeways is changing it to now charge $1.50 minimum per part. So this is, I think, 30 different pieces. So that'd be a minimum of $45, then plus all the material printing costs and the amount of space it takes up in the machine is a factor too. In the past, it was kind of just the material you were using plus $1.50 startup cost for the whole model. So one reason they're doing is because it takes a lot of time for them to sort out and count out all the pieces and make sure they have each one and clean each one off individually and everything. So if you do them a favor, they'll do you a favor. I mean, granted, they did increase the prices, and then they're going to give you a discount off those increased prices. But if you want to save a whole lot of money, if you can incorporate all of these as one part connected inside a cage, like trapped inside a cage, not connected, just trapped inside a cage, and then Shapeways will print the whole thing at once and then grab in the box and take out the whole thing, so it's a lot easier for them because they know that all your parts are in there. So as long as you make the holes in the cage smaller than the parts that you have, then nothing will fall out and you're good to go. So I've already arranged these so they're pretty close and nicely packed because you don't want to take up that much space because they charge 21 cents per cubic centimeter of space that you use now. In addition to the 28 cents of material you use, plus $1.50 per part. So, first step is to go to File, Import Plane, and hit Replace. Don't hit Replace, my bad. You hit Append. If you hit Replace, then you lose everything you had. So I'm going to go Import, replace this with what I had before. I had this file saved, luckily. So it's a mistake that I make sometimes. Make sure you don't make it. You go to File, Import Plane, Append. Yeah, so we've got it there. And I'm going to resize this plane so that it's slightly larger than my shape. And we're going to define the final cage, like the dimensions of the cage we're putting in. So you don't have to be super exact, but make it a little bit larger. And then I'm extruding this plane so it's slightly larger than the whole set. If you hit the button where the tilde is, but without hitting shift, it's like to the left of the one, it'll make the box invisible so you can see inside. So that's pretty good. I'm going to scale it up slightly just so I'm a little bit larger. Yeah, so that looks good. I'm a little bit bigger. I'm definitely way bigger this way, so I'm going to shrink it in just this direction. A little bit more. Alright. So you can't put these parts too close together. You need about a millimeter of clearance, or else they'll reject it, or they might fuse together. So that's about as much as I have there. You can go and measure. It's, this tool and then this tool. So I have 1.47 there, 1.3 there. It just shows you the gap. So that should be good. Turn my box back on there. W lets you see the wireframe. These triangles are too organized. So I want to disorganize them. S, click, E to expand, R to do a remesh. I'm putting smooth all the way up, and put the remesh about there. The triangles are now all disorganized. And then Shift R lets you reduce the amount of triangles. So you don't want to get too low that you get these like crazy points, because then the final cage will have like a big giant hole here and a big giant hole here. So it depends how small your parts are. If you make it all the way like this, then your cage will be very, very solid. Your holes in your cage will be very small, which means for sure your parts won't fall out, but you'll be using up too much material, and you have to pay for the material for this cage. So I'm going to estimate that this is probably good, that level of density. So I have it at about 51%, at 51% here. I'm going to hit accept, and then you go to edit, make pattern, and change this first one to dual edges. That looks plenty good. I don't like how it's too bunched up at the sides and very loose in the center and then bunched up on the sides. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna undo to when I was reducing and turn off adaptive. So it's whatever. That's what you do to fix it. Turn off adaptive. And I think it was too tighter than I needed, so I'm gonna loosen the mesh a little bit. So I have it at 70% here, and it's like that. Accept, and then go pick my mesh, edit, make pattern, change to the second one. That's pretty good. I could probably get looser, so I could have made the mesh a little bit bigger, but it's fine. How it is, I'm going to change this element dimension from 2 down to like 1.3 or so. 1.2. So that's the diameter of these little tubes. So I have it at, I'm going to put it at 1.2. If you make them too thin, then they'll break apart, and you won't get your parts because the cage will be broken, and they won't ship you anything, or they'll reject the part for being too thin. Technically, you can go as thin as 0.7. That's the thinnest that Shapeways will allow you to go. I wouldn't recommend going that thin, but it depends. If you're going to tumble, if you're going to put this in the tumbler, then you need it a little bit thicker. Your parts won't get as polished because they have a block around it, but depending on the size of your parts and the size of the holes, the ceramic media can fit inside there and then polish it and then fall back out when it's done in the polisher. So it just depends on your settings, but if you make it too thin, they'll break. So I'm going to put it at 1.188. I'll put it at 1.2. There you go. So it'll look like that. This is the preview that we're in. When you hit accept, it'll bake this so it's all together. Oh, there we go. So it's all joined together now, but they're separate sections. I have a really high poly count here. I could have reduced it more. We're still under the 1 million polygon limit, so it's not a problem. But your mesh doesn't need to be this dense. See how I have like tons of triangles here. There was a setting in the pattern dialog that let you set the reduce. So if you turn that number up, then you'll have less triangles. You can also do it after the fact by just clicking S, clicking your thing, expanding the selection, and then hitting Shift R. So that'll bring up the reduce dialog. But since it's so many triangles, it takes a little bit. So there you go. So I can reduce it. I'm gonna, put it up to 50 or so, halfway, and it'll make a whole lot less triangles since we don't really care about this mesh at all. More triangles just means a bigger file size, so it'll take more time to upload and more time for Shapeways to process it, to render it in the browser, and then also more time for them to process it when they print it. Just like if you're slicing G-code, a really high-res mesh will take longer to slice. Alright, so I reduced it a bunch. We were at 881,000 polygons, and now we are at 153,000. The last step to do is just join these two together. So I'm holding shift and I'll click both and then hit combine. So now they're all one mesh. And they're trapped and they're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and file export and then upload this to Shapeways.